Good day. My name is Bill Friedman. On behalf of Appcito, Amazon Web Services, and ShopSocially, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Accelerating and Securing Web Applications in AWS in Under 5 Minutes. Let's start with a question. Have you ever wondered if a small change to your cloud infrastructure could make a huge improvement to your applications? Recently, the ShopSocially tech team asked themselves that exact question. So today's webinar explores ShopSocially's business, their journey, and the surprising improvements from a little infrastructure change, adding Appcito Cafe to their cloud platform. A few details about our webinar platform: GoToMeeting. Audio. By default, your webinar audio is coming via your microphone and computer speakers. Optionally, if you'd prefer, you can switch to a phone line. Simply click the telephone link on your screen and follow the instructions. Questions. We do value your questions, so please ask them as they arise. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, open the questions area in the control panel on your right. Second, type the question. Third, click send. That's it. We've left plenty of time after the initial remarks for our speakers to answer your questions. And let me answer one question right now. Yes, this event is being recorded. We'll share the instructions for on-demand viewing via email shortly after the event. I'm pleased to introduce today's speakers. Samir Palnikar, President and co-founder of ShopSocially. Brandon Chavis, Solution Architect at Amazon Web Services. And Tom Jarrett, Solutions Architect at Appcito. And with that, I will turn things over to Samir.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. ShopSocially is a one-stop social referral and loyalty marketing platform. Websites typically spend more than 50% of their marketing budget in acquiring web traffic. ShopSocially enables websites to make 40% more revenue from the same traffic by maximizing engagement. Leading brands like Ulta, Dressman, Avenue, Zazzle, Zipcar, Ulta, Beretta, they're all using the ShopSocially platform to enable things like referral marketing, visual commerce, and many other programs. And ShopSocially has been consistently driving word-of-mouth promotions via social for thousands of brands, delivering positive social ROI for their social media efforts. What differentiates us against other platforms is really our singular focus to help drive real ROI through social, referral, and loyalty programs. We have won several awards and honors along the way, including 2 top startup recognitions and being featured by Facebook in a case study. ShopSocially delivers 8 different solutions that get embedded on a customer's website. These solutions increase traffic by 10%, conversion rate by up to 21%, and repeat purchases by 26%. Underlying the 8 solutions is the ShopSocially Framework that enables websites to make the most of these solutions. Features such as A/B testing allows scenario-based testing and optimization. Personalization enables websites to control when and where the campaigns will be shown based on the user's profile, visit history, purchase history, social profile, location, and many other such attributes. Auto scheduling enables campaigns to be enabled without any manual intervention. The reporting framework provides a detailed breakdown of how ROI is being delivered. Plus, all the campaigns are mobile friendly, which is an absolute requirement in the mobile age. So clearly, a platform like this is going to need a lot of firepower in terms of resources. And we had certain very, very key challenges. The first thing we wanted to do was to break away from the competition by being a lot more agile with our infrastructure, because we are constantly adding new customers on our platform, and we had to roll out new functionality on a continuous basis to attract more customers. So it was more functionality and more customers. The second thing we really wanted to do is we were getting heavily burdened by the number of servers we needed on our front end and the load balancers to really keep up with the increasing demand. So we had to maintain profitability by reducing unnecessary CapEx and operational costs. And finally, we wanted to delight our customers. We wanted customers to get better visibility and actually maximize usage and retention. So those were the key business challenges. And the main problem we were having is that we were getting hampered by the amount of infrastructure and the management that we had to do at the load balancing layer to deal with some of these things. To talk about some of these challenges, I'm going to hand it over to Brandon Chavez, who is the solution architect at AWS. Brandon?
Hey, thanks so much.
Sure.
So real quickly, my first slide here is just going to introduce the wide range of services that AWS offers. At the core, you can see that the compute, the storage, and the data services are really the heart of our offering. But on top of those, we have a wide range of supporting components like management tools, networking services, and application augmentation services. But all of this is hosted within our global data center footprint that allows you to consume services without having to build out your own facilities or equipment. And our data center footprint is global, and it spans 5 continents. And we have highly redundant clusters of data centers in each region. Each region is made up of multiple distinct data centers that are designed for redundancy and resiliency to make sure your applications can be designed in a highly available manner. And our footprint is constantly expanding as we continuously increase capacity and redundancy, and we add locations to meet the needs of our customers around the world. So you can get your application closer to where your customers actually are. And so looking at some of the specific services that ShopSocially actually uses on AWS, we can cover each one real quickly here. EC2 allows you to spin up virtual servers in the cloud. And EC2 contains operating systems that you're used to. And it gives you flexible and granular control over the amount of compute resources that you actually need. So EC2 enables you to increase or decrease this amount within minutes, not hours or days, like with traditional hardware. So you can commission 1 or 100 or 1,000 server instances simultaneously. And all this is controlled through our APIs. And so your application can automatically scale itself up or down depending on what it needs. And so CloudWatch is a monitoring service for AWS services like EC2. So you can use it to track metrics and set alarms and create automatic actions based on these metrics. So for example, if your application happens to be consuming more CPU resources than you have currently allocated, you can trigger an action to add more EC2 instances to your application to allow more compute power to serve the traffic that you need. And auto scaling is kind of the glue between EC2 and CloudWatch in this situation. Auto scaling really allows you to follow the demand curve for your applications very closely, and it removes the need for you to manually provision any sort of EC2 capacity in advance. So when you have that CloudWatch condition that says, when my CPU utilization exceeds a certain amount, for example, auto scaling will be what actually triggers the launching of new EC2 instances. And then Route 53 is a global anycast network of DNS servers around the world. And it's designed to automatically route your users to the optimal location depending on a variety of network conditions. But the result of this is basically low query latency for your end users and low update latency for your DNS record management. So Route 53 is designed to be very well integrated with a variety of other AWS services like EC2, or perhaps Amazon S3 buckets, or Amazon CloudFront distributions, or Elastic Load Balancers. Amazon S3 is secure, durable, and highly scalable object storage. S3 is easy to use, and it's got a simple web interface, and it allows you to store objects, static assets, and then retrieve them from anywhere on the web. And with S3, like everything in AWS, you only pay for what you actually consume, and there's no minimum fee and no upfront cost. EBS is persistent block level storage for use with Amazon EC2 instances in the AWS cloud. And each volume is automatically replicated within its availability zone to help protect you from component failure and offer high availability and durability. And CloudFront is our content distribution network, which helps distribute content and static assets to your end users with very low latency and high data transfer speeds in order to provide the best experience to your customers when they use your application. So that's my overview of the AWS services that are being used on the ShopSocially platform. I'm going to pass this to Tom Jarrett, a solutions architect with Appcito, to talk a little bit more.
Thanks, Brandon and Samir. Here's the ShopSocially architecture prior to deploying Appcito Cafe. First, there's a lot of good here. ShopSocially customers have embedded the ShopSocially application into their website, mobile applications, social campaigns, and Facebook. This is all done over HTTP and HTTPS. ShopSocially deployed their production systems on AWS, which will easily accommodate their compute, storage, database, networking needs with elasticity well into the future, which works out great for ShopSocially because their platform employs a microservice architecture that is elastic and scalable. All of the ShopSocially application level resources take advantage of AWS Auto Scaling capabilities that Brandon mentioned earlier. ShopSocially develops their applications with agility and frequent releases, so they're all set on the app server side. But it's hard to ignore that middle layer. It consists of multiple HA proxy load balancers, custom integration, and manual configuration. It's very complex, and more troubling, the load balancer layer is not elastic like the rest of the infrastructure. Because of this, the HA proxy layer needed to be overbuilt to handle spike loads. Also, anytime that ShopSocially makes an additional service available to their customers, they'll need to reconfigure the entire middle tier and add new servers and HA proxy instances to handle this. As Samir noted earlier, this is a challenge to their business agility. So if we go in a little bit deeper into some of these technical challenges, the existing reverse proxy not being elastic. So what happens when there's a spike in traffic? If the middle layer can't handle that, then there could be some downtime there, and maybe we can improve on that a bit. And also, as I said, the traffic might be going back and forth between some of these HA proxies. It kind of limits the visibility because there's no central way to correlate that. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about how that might be able to be improved. And what if in the future they wanted to add some more services? A great example of that would be security, maybe DDoS or web application firewall, or frankly any other service that they want to add to this. The way it's designed now, that there could be a lot more flexibility there, and maybe added efficiencies from doing that all from a central place. Also, efficiency on resources. It kind of gets into this service chaining. As you have multiple services, how do you just route between them? And examples of that are if I do security, or if I want to do some logical routing from a microservice level. Again, we're going to talk about how we can make those things work a lot better. So now let's look a little bit more detail on ShopSocially's architecture after Appcito Cafe was deployed. And Cafe stands for Cloud Application Front End. As you can clearly see, the middle layer is much more clean. It's efficient, as all of the services are done on the Appcito PEP, which is our policy execution point. And any new services that would be added would all be done from the same functional product, and it can dynamically be elastic and scale as needed as spikes in traffic happen, maybe from a new campaign that happens, or just adding more customers and clients from ShopSocially's side. And all of this is, as you can see there, CloudWatch is monitoring not only the application servers, but also the Appcito product. Appcito is listening to the events that CloudWatch creates and is aware of new servers being spun up from the application side and dynamically adds them to the load balancing pools and communicates that to Appcito Barista. We're going to get into the full architecture details of Appcito between the Appcito PEP and Appcito Barista in some slides coming up, but just to see how much cleaner this is from a deployment standpoint and from a dynamic scale. It's much less complex. It's extremely elastic and highly available, fully integrated into Amazon services and ShopSocially's needs for expanding and growth. We also support full REST API, which is the communication into managing the Appcito PEPs and CloudWatch.
Here is how Appcito Cafe works to improve application delivery for ShopSocially and for all Appcito Cafe users. At the foundation level, Appcito made an important design decision that enables nearly limitless scalability while ensuring consistent application delivery policies. That decision is to 100% decouple control plane functions from data plane functions. Let me explain this in a little more detail. In the control plane is Appcito Cafe Barista. Barista is a centralized point of control and management for your entire application portfolio. Use Barista to set application delivery policies that are ultimately enforced into the data plane. Barista is also where data plane analytics data is collected and analyzed. In the data plane is Appcito Cafe Policy Execution Proxies, or PEPs. PEPs are clusters of application intimate proxies that enforce application-level policy directives. PEPs analyze incoming requests against policy directives for load balancing, security, caching, performance optimization, and more. They perform these functions in a single pass, keeping latency at a minimum. PEPs also collect performance and health metrics. These metrics are used to auto-scale PEPs as needed, and ultimately pass the data onto Barista for improved application health and performance visibility via dashboards, anomaly detection, and logging. PEPs also manage session state, ensuring consistent user experience while the underlying infrastructure is undergoing frequent changes. Deploying Cafe is very simple 5-minute process. You log into Barista, provide the application endpoint and IAM user credentials. After a brief discovery of your cloud application, the system is then ready to deploy with an automated update to DNS. Should you choose to stop using Cafe, it's very simple to return to your previous configuration. The centralized Barista and distributed PEPs are independent systems. Each are self-managing, and auto-scaling. The result is a highly reliable, highly elastic, low latency, and policy-driven solution. You benefit from a sophisticated infrastructure that would take years to build and tune. Best of all, because this is a SaaS offering, you can deploy this subscription service in as little as 5 minutes. A core advantage of Appcito Cafe is access to deep application visibility, analytics, and matrix. Appcito Cafe captures traffic matrix that are then correlated and analyzed, allowing raw matrix to turn into insights. Here you can see a couple of screenshots. A fully graphical representation of the data. For example, you can view CPU utilization, response time, latency information for each application and its servers. This allows you to quickly isolate and resolve any kind of problem you may be having. You can also drill into any of these charts and select a time frame that you want to see. In addition, data can be kept for long periods of time for compliance and other reasons.
So I want to talk a little bit more about our application level security. So we have full DDoS and bot mitigation in the product. And again, that's all done at the policy enforcement point. And as the traffic comes in, we can dynamically have an uploaded known bad source IP address from maybe known bad malware infected clients. This is our bot mitigation. This is dynamic, it's easily turned on and selectable by different categories. DDoS, we're looking for application layer DDoSes. So this is built into our web application firewall, and it will look for known types of attacks. Like some common ones would be like a slow Alaris or a slow post, where the attacker is trying to hog CPU resources on the application servers. So because the traffic is centrally sent into Appcito and then to the application servers, it's a central location for us to mitigate any of those kind of attacks without compromise to the actual application servers. We protect also against the common attacks around SQL injection and cross-site scripting. But one of the key things that we do to make it very easy, as you can imagine the number of rules that you may have on a web application firewall, somewhere in the 20,000 at some times, we are able to put them into different categories and let you easily select the type of application that you want to protect. So WordPress and Joomla and Drupal are some of those examples where we can simply say that this is the type of application you're protecting, and then apply the rules dynamically. A key thing that we have here with Appcito is that we have the ability to dynamically select traffic from a layer 7 context perspective and then apply a policy to it. So I could get down to a geolocation, a specific URL, a specific regex expression, and write that in a SmartFlow filter, and then turn on these security services or any of our services. So it lets you have a lot of flexibility in how you select traffic into a service like security. Now let me talk a little bit more about continuous delivery here, and Samir mentioned A/B testing. So it's sometimes called A/B testing, it's sometimes called blue-green testing, but basically it's a continuous deployment aid here, where you may have upgraded some of your servers, or at least want to make sure you can test these servers with real-world traffic. So we have internal routing in the Appcito PEP that's configured, and it can actually send base traffic to a separate set of servers with the same CNAME. So the application doesn't change on the front end, and the clients are not changed or have to send traffic to a different place. It would just come in and then dynamically controlled internal to Appcito PEP, sent to a separate server. And that server, the traffic can either be a percentage of the traffic coming in. It can be simply just mirrored. So you want to expose the green servers to this real world traffic and see how they perform. Or you can use this layer 7 context switching to do that decision. Then the key here is that all of this would be in the analytics pages that we saw earlier, and you can compare how these new servers are doing with the old servers or production servers, and then you'll have a lot of confidence when you want to do the next step of turning these green servers into the production servers. They're still all connecting to the same database and the backend, etc. So very intelligent steering. And again, this is all API driven as well. So if you're using some continuous delivery tools, and you're actually getting new servers ready to go from a QA perspective, they can dynamically be put into the green pool and have traffic exposed to them without the app developer really having to worry about setting up Appcito. And again, because of this internal routing, if there is something wrong with the green servers, it's very simple to divert the traffic back to the production blue servers. So kind of a summary of the services and capabilities that Appcito Cafe has. We divided them into 4 blocks here. So availability, performance, security, and continuous delivery. Here, I don't want to go into each of these because we can probably hold some of that for live questions, but I want to cover which of these services that ShopSocially is doing now, and potentially very easy for them to add more in the future because the infrastructure is there. A great example of that is if ShopSocially decided that they want anomaly detection, they would simply turn that functionality on in Appcito. There's no installing more instances or getting a new product, and etc. So that's very simple for any of the functions that you see on this screen. So a little bit about the reasons why ShopSocially chose Appcito Cafe. I say that probably one of the bigger reasons is the infrastructure consolidation. You saw this on the before slide that we had, where any kind of new spike in traffic or any new service that ShopSocially would decide to add may mean that they have to have a separate product and then have some maybe complex logic and routing and diverting traffic to this new service, etc. So with Appcito Cafe, they were able to reduce the infrastructure because it's all done on a single product with consolidated services. So you'll see that is hugely beneficial to them. And then on the inside, so the analytics and the logging and the debugging, etc., and maybe even reporting. All of this, because it is all going through a central enforcement point, it's very easy to capture logs on every bit of traffic that flows through and centrally graph that, and that's very, very beneficial for ShopSocially and other customers. And then there's the application security. So we talked a bit about bot detection and DDoS and those kind of attacks and web application firewall. So again, because this is all in the same product and solution that has multiple services, it's very, very easy to turn on and use. So maybe they're using some security today and they want to have a plan to add more. It's very simple for them to turn that on. The business benefits for ShopSocially. So specifically around cost savings. So anytime you deploy a new product and you get a 20% savings, that's just huge, right? So the reason why ShopSocially was able to do that was because of the complexity reduction and instance reduction by moving to a single product that has multiple functionalities. And also, Appcito Cafe can handle some of the offloading functionality that would normally have been done on the actual app servers. So things like caching and compression and SSL offload, as an example, all can be done in a centralized scalable location as opposed to burdened in the app servers.
All right, so there you have it, a full stack solution for ShopSocially. The infrastructure provided by Amazon Web Service was a strong foundation on which ShopSocially built a great service that's serving thousands of brands today. In 5 minutes, they were able to swap out their infrastructure. It wasn't elastic and was highly complex with a simpler and more scalable solution with Appcito Cafe. Want to thank our speakers today for their presentations, and now we're going to turn it over to our question and answer session.
All right, now would be a great time to submit additional questions you might be having. Go ahead and type them into the questions box in the webinar control panel. Also, please take a moment to complete our webinar satisfaction survey. I'm launching that now. Your feedback helps us continue to improve our content that we provide to you. So I'm starting up the poll, and you should be seeing it on screen. And just click one of your answers, and then we'll move on. While some of you are doing the poll, let's move on to our first question. Our first question is from Sander, and it is for Tom. The question is Appcito Cafe only available as a SaaS service, or can I run it with my own VPC?
Thanks. That's a great question. So thanks. That's a great question. So Appcito Cafe is offered as a full SaaS, and if you remember the control plane and data plane, so Barista or PEP, that can be totally run in Appcito's infrastructure, and you would just have a DNS change to your application, and all the traffic would be routed through the PEP, which would be at Appcito. So that's the full SaaS offering. If you choose to have your app servers in a private VPC, we can also install the PEP in your VPC, which would make it more of a hybrid SaaS offering, where Barista would still be at Appcito, and the actual data plane proxy would be in your VPC.
Thanks, Tom. Our next question is for Brandon. Brandon, it's from Ken. The question is, does AWS Auto Scaling scale both up and scale down? What are the rules for scaling down?
Sure. So I will start by saying that auto scaling is designed to help you track what your actual usage, your actual resource needs of your application are. And so you can leverage Amazon CloudWatch to track certain vital metrics to your application. Perhaps it's memory bound or CPU bound, and you can track that across the fleet of your instances. And when that certain metric exceeds a certain value that you've determined is at the critical point for your application's performance, then yes, you can add or you can subtract instances depending on what you really need. So for scaling down, if you have maybe like a web application that's behind an elastic load balancer or behind Appcito's firewall, then it's great to use those CloudWatch metrics to make sure that you've tracked your application's usage, and you know that you're not going to need that additional instance at any point in the future. And so you can really get in there and tweak what that scale down policy looks like. So you don't scale down too soon, but you also don't leave too many instances running at the same time, and therefore paying for resources you might not actually need.
Great answer. Thank you, Brandon. My next question is from Maria. It is for Samir. Samir, how is ShopSocially using CloudWatch?
So elasticity is very, very important to ShopSocially. Therefore, we have been actually a very, very heavy user of CloudWatch, because looking at what kinds of resources are being used in the system and using those monitoring metrics to figure out whether to scale up or down, that's very, very important to us. So even before Appcito Cafe came in, I mean, we did have a lot of monitoring that we did, and we did scale up and down. Cafe just made it a lot easier, and we did it for less money. So again, as I said, elasticity is very important for us. So we need to monitor resources, and that's where CloudWatch comes in and helps us out.
Okay. Next question is for Tom. It's from Robert. Robert's asking, can you go into more details about Web Application Firewall?
Sure, Robert, thanks for asking.
Robert, thanks for asking. So we have a Web Application Firewall, and we are actually getting rules from a third-party company, Mod Security, and we can take the rules in. I think there's in the neighborhood of 20,000 or so, but they're pre-categorized, which will allow you to select a type of application from the list that you saw on the slide earlier, and only apply those rules to those flows that are going to that application. So there's a lot of flexibility in both selecting the types of traffic that you want to be exposed to the Web Application Firewall rules, as well as selecting the rules so that they're application specific to the application that you're protecting.
Thanks, Tom. The next question is a rather general question about pricing. How much does this all cost?
So the cost for Appcito Cafe starts in the $50 range, and that's sort of the entry level. But any complex or more complete configurations, it's probably best just to work with the Appcito sales team, and you can reach out to us for that, and we'll help you fit the exact configuration to your environment.
Okay, so I have a question here, a pretty simple question. Is Appcito Cafe directly visible to ShopSocially customers?
I'll take that one. So because it's a reverse proxy and it's actually front-ending the application servers, so the design is for it to be transparent to end customers. So obviously ShopSocially is working with Appcito to configure this in front of their app servers, but the ShopSocially customers are not aware or have any visibility into what the traffic is going through as it comes into the app servers. So it's a totally transparent solution from an end customer perspective.
Thanks, Tom. I now have a question from Ron Vijay. It's a long multi-part question, so we'll go through this slowly. I wanted to know if PEP acts like a load balancer.
Sure, I'll take that one as well. As the PEP, which is the data plane proxy where the traffic is traversing, it has awareness of all of the application servers, and they're typically cloned in pools of servers, so there's actually multiple of them. But from a client perspective, there's a single destination point. It's either an IP address or a CNAME. So from that perspective, we are monitoring the individual app servers and directing the connections as they come in to the most available application server. So sure, it is a full load balancer / application delivery with all of the other services tied in that we talked about, from security, continuous deployment, caching, and SSL offload, etc.
So if you were to get 1,000 connections in a second to the server, would it queue the requests, or would it process them in parallel?
Well, it's sort of processing in parallel as the connections come in. The connections are sent to the most available server, a physical application server. There's a few different ways to set the load balancing algorithms. Most typically used is least connections. It just means that as the connections come in, the connections will be sent with or without persistency to the next most available application server.
I'm going to ask the audience if you have any more questions. I have one last one in queue here. This question is for Samir about the journey you went through of deploying your own solution and evaluating other alternatives before choosing Appcito.
Sure. So we had actually built a pretty sophisticated load balancer for ourselves, and we spent a lot of time, effort. It's really a build versus buy decision, but when we actually built it, there was no buy. We had to build it ourselves, and we built a fairly sophisticated one, but again, that not being our core competency, we could only spend so much time on it to maintain it and upgrade it, that infrastructure and so on. And when we evaluated Appcito, we could clearly see that this was a company that was focused entirely on that layer, and they could completely eliminate the headache while saving us money and providing faster service and response to our customers. So anytime we can work with a layer like that seamlessly drops into our infrastructure, and it was literally like a 5-minute change where we quickly switched to Appcito, and everything was working smoothly as if the customers never felt a difference. So I'm delighted that Appcito came along, saved us time, saved us money, and the headache of having to maintain this infrastructure.
Thanks, Amir. And here's our last question for today. It's from Mario, and Mario asks, "Is the application elasticity," I'm assuming this is the ShopSocially application, is that still managed through CloudWatch? I guess this is for Tom.
Sure. Well, actually, it's probably best for Samir, but I'll let you chime in here. As the instances in AWS are all connected, and through APIs, CloudWatch is watching what's happening with all of the application servers. If there is scale needed from the elasticity from an application server, Appcito is also watching this event bus, and we know that a new application server got spun up, and we'll dynamically add it to the pool of servers for that specific application.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we heavily use CloudWatch to provide elasticity at various layers, and we are able to scale for more traffic. I mean, today we serve about more than 2 billion service requests a year, so that's what we do right now. And as we scale during the shopping season or some other seasons when the traffic really spikes up, we are able to quickly respond to that by adding more resources, adding more servers, and all this happens in a fairly elastic fashion, fairly automatically. What was nice about Appcito is that they could plug it into the same CloudWatch infrastructure and be able to provide the same kind of elasticity and even more flexibility than what our infrastructure had before. So that's what was great about it.
Okay, and the final part of the question, and our final question, this is for Tom, again from Mario. If a new server comes online in the ShopSocially app, how does Cafe detect the new one and provide access to it?
So sure, as I said earlier, if a auto scale happens on the app server side, because of the interaction we have with CloudWatch as well as ShopSocially using CloudWatch for monitoring the app servers, the messages that will come up from the app servers actually spinning up will be translated into us populating the pool with that new app server. So we'll get the instance ID and dynamically populate the pool for the app server load balancing.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar and for a lively question and answer session. I want to remind you that all registered attendees will receive an email from Appcito shortly with instructions for watching the recording of this webinar on demand. I also want to thank our speakers, Samir, Brandon, and Tom. If you have additional questions for our speakers, their email addresses were listed there. And finally, if you want to check out any of the products and services discussed in today's webinar, please visit our respective websites, ShopSocially.com, AWS.amazon.com, and Appcito.com. Personalized product demos and free trials are available. Onboarding with all of us is very simple. Give us a call. And with that, thank you very much and have a great day.